Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning, and it is my favorite time of the week. It is time for a Sales Logic. I am hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter, who has been a trooper this week. Listen, he has had his challenges, and he's still on the road.
Hey, you know what? This is also my favorite time of the week too. You can't take all the credit. Well, anyway, hey, it is. You know what? It's a great week. You had a great week. You got your voice back. That's the big thing. Great to have you back. We missed you last week.
Thank you, and
Yeah,
thank you for to Bryn Tillman for picking up the
yeah.
ball and running with it. So let's go ahead and start the show because we got a good one today. All right, welcome back to Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to be really effective at, I think, one of the most important skills out there, and that is sales. Now, before Mark dives in and tells you what is on tap for today, I like to start off by telling you how the show works, because we start off every week with a question from you, the audience, because this show is about you. It's not about us. It's about what we can do to help you be more effective at sales. We cover a hot topic. We recommend a book. And because we want you to leave with return on investment, we have a lightning round. So, Mark, what is up for today?
Well, the topic today is most effective sales questions. And the question comes from Bernard in Minneapolis. He says, so my team and I are debating sales questions. Should they or should they not change in a shifting marketplace? He goes on to say, not going to tell you which side I'm on, but want to solve our argument. Or he says, I want you to solve our argument. Okay, what do you think? Should questions change in this period we're in right now?
I think I'm going to answer yes and no. I mean, how wishy-washy is that? But I think when always talking with customers, your questions need to be relevant. Like if you were in talking to a customer who's getting negatively impacted by a shift in the marketplace, you wouldn't talk about what are your plans for growth in the coming year. You would talk about what the challenges are and specifically how they're going to deal with those challenges. I mean, for example, I've been working a lot in the healthcare space lately, and if the election if there is a red wave, then most of my clients are going to be kind of negatively impacted because a lot of the government funding that they've got will probably be at risk. So we're talking about that. We're discussing that because that is a potential shift in the marketplace. And that's where I could add value or help them.
You know, that brings up a key point because, again, it's really about making the questions relevant to the customer and their situation right now. And, you know, there's more data, there's more information than ever that we can get. And it's important that we stay focused on the customer's needs, not our needs. You know, let's talk about, we do have the election coming up, and irregardless, it's going to have ramifications. We have the Fed. Is the Fed going to begin decreasing rates, or are they going to hold them firm, or could they even increase? There are geopolitical situations. There are always situations out there that impact any organization. The key is that the questions you ask, are they relevant to where that person is at today or where they will be tomorrow?
Yeah, Bryn Tillman, it's a great question. Her favorite is what happens if you don't make the change, kind of forcing that sense of urgency. But Mark, the more that I think about this question, the more I think, honestly, if you are not changing your questions, if you're not updating your questions, then you're in essence not customizing the sales call, because my questions are not the same based on the industry that I call it. They're not the same based on where my customer is located, because the geographic location, they could have a new competitor coming into the marketplace. They could have a competitor leaving the marketplace. They could have had a, massive layoff in the town that, dispersed workers or something. I mean, there's so much. I think the key to this question when it comes to questions is you need to ask yourself, are you educated enough to make a really good sales call? Like, like, don't just ask questions to make a conversation, but what are you trying to learn and what are you trying to get at, so that you can decide, can you help this client or would they be better served in another arena?
That's so key. And Bryn brings up a great, hey, what happens if you don't make a change? Question I love asking early on is, how have you made decisions like this in the past? I love asking that very early on in a sales call. Why? Because I want to find out, is it this person's first time at the rodeo in terms of making this level of decision? How does this person talk to other people? Do they deal with other departments? Do they have to get other people involved? Because here's something that I found. You have to stop and ask yourself, is what I'm selling, am I converting or educating? What I mean by this, if I'm converting something, in other words, they've always been buying from competitor A, and now you want to sell them. Okay, so that's a conversion. That's they are educated, they're knowledgeable. If it's education, where they've never been in this category before, they've never used it. I got it, and you know what's interesting? If I'm having to educate the customer, there's at least 50% more decision makers that are going to be involved, which means I got to ask more questions. So I've really got to be asking, hey, who else is involved? How does a decision like this get made in your organization? Walk me through the steps. I want to ask those types of questions early on, because if I'm going to run into a roadblock, let me find it early. Don't give it to me late in the game.
Yeah, I think that I think Bill King makes such a great point here. He said, ask questions that show you know your industry, right? I mean, you want to make sure that they feel right at the beginning that you could be a partner, that you could be a resource to them. And I think one of the important things about questions, especially like the one that Bryn said, my favorite question is, what happens if you don't make a change? I'm trying to figure out their sense of urgency and their sense of need. I was calling on a credit union based in LA, and they had been a referral to me. And in going through the questioning, and I kind of asked kind of the question that Bryn did, she didn't really feel like they needed to make changes. She felt like the industry was the CEO felt like the industry was pretty stagnant, that there wasn't a reason to make change. I don't want to deal with that type of customer. I mean, my opinion was she had her head in the sand. My God, she's in the middle of LA. She's in the financial services industry. If she doesn't make a change, she's not going to be here a year from now. So the important too of questioning is, especially, you're trying to aim your sales team at the places where you can make the most impact. You better be asking questions, not only to help them, but to learn, is this somebody who wants to go where I want to go?
See, that's so key. What you raised is the fact that you're asking questions, and we think, well, I'm going to ask questions to get the customer to reveal that they got to work with me. But you're asking questions to say whether or not you want to work with them. Asking questions is a two-way street. Got to keep that in mind. And the idea is, I want to find out. And please, this is something that salespeople are so hesitant. They're so hesitant to ask difficult questions early on. They just want to kind of keep the process moving. Hey, you know what? I want to find out early on. I want to find out very quickly. Is this going to be an opportunity worth pursuing? Ask difficult questions up front. Hey, somebody asked me yesterday, I was doing a program and yesterday with a company up here in New Hampshire. And we were talking about this very subject, questions. And the question came up is there a percentage breakdown of personal questions versus business questions? In other words, and I go, hey, you got to stay focused on the industry. But you can run about an 80-20. You can run about 80-20. 20% of your questions might be more relative to, hey, the school they went to or the community that they're in, something personal. So don't forget that questions can also be personal in nature, but keep about that 80-20 rule.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I think you need to pay attention to the person that you're calling on. Like this topic brings me to mind of one of the very first biggest contracts I ever landed. It was back in 2012, and I was on a hiking trip in Hungary, and there were 12 other people on the event. One of the guys on the hike asked me what I did for a living, and he and I talked for like 4 hours on this hike. We hiked together, and I never asked him one single question about his business because his personality style was very relationship driven. And he hired me as soon as I got home to come do a big job for him. Honestly, he didn't really even understand what I did for a living. He just really liked me. Now, if you got on a call with me and you started asking me one personal question, you would irritate the fire out of me. I don't need a friend. I don't want to talk. I don't want another relationship. I want to get to the business at hand. You need to be paying attention to who you're talking with.
See, that such a key piece there, because again, I'm not going to sit there and start off with all these personal questions and so forth. But as we develop a relationship, because remember, sales is built around trust.
Yeah.
And trust is, it can be emotional. It's emotional. And it's emotional at different levels to different people. So you just heard from Mare, hey, she said, don't ask me a personal question. You're right. She doesn't want to go down that path. But I'll tell you what, if you're listening well enough to what people are saying, they're going to give you clues as to what the next question is going to be. And that's going to guide you. Key words you're listening for. You're listening for words where they talk about dates, urgency, critical needs. You're just listening for little things in there. Are there hesitations in how they answer? Is there speed with which they answer? Is there an uncertainty? These are little indicators. They're going to help you. But I'll tell you what, whenever you get a question, you ask them a question and they give you a response, please take the time to unpack that more and ask them a follow-up question on that.
Yeah, don't boy, you can really tell, every once in a while you'll do a podcast or something like that, and you can tell somebody's so scripted, right? And you just gave them a gem and they don't pick up on one little thing that you said and they just go on to the next question. And there's no kind of, give and take in that. And it is so key. I love what Dave Sanderson says here. It says, getting to the true concern opportunity, you develop your advocate coach, that person within the company will help you craft the right questions. And then both Andy and Bill Snow talk about the fact that you've got to know who else is involved in that. Mark, I don't believe that there has ever been a more important time to understand that the decision-making process is rarely clean with one or two individuals. Everything to me in today's marketplace seems to be a complex sale.
Oh, I think that's so spot on. It is so true. And when the person says, "Oh, I'm the one who makes the decision," liar, liar, pants on fire. Because chances are there's somebody else there. Everything gets run by somebody.
Yeah.
This is why you have got to really go back to that question I said earlier. How have you made decisions like this in the past? I'm listening for names. I'm listening for departments. I've got to hear, and I've got to make it comfortable enough for the customer to tell me who else is involved. Because again, there may be, if I'm in a complex sale, there's other relationships I'm going to develop. There's other people I'm going to talk to. I have to be able to do that. And it's so critical. Never assume that the person you're talking to is the absolute decision maker. And this is why every piece of information you hear, you got to verify.
Yeah.
You got to find out, am I hearing it from somebody else too?
Yeah, I want to go a little bit deeper into what Bill said here, because he said understanding the decision-making process is so critical, and it's often the reason salespeople don't make their goals. Listen to that, salespeople. Bill just that's a mic drop. It's like you need to analyze when you don't get the sale, and let's talk a little bit about that. Like I had a former client call me this past week, and she was looking for some leadership development work. And she was talking about the fact that she was partnering with another company. Now, I know her well. I have a good relationship with her, but that just told me in that moment that 50% of the decision-making process was out of her hands and landed with somebody else. And so when I finished the call, I said, would it be all right if I connected with her? I'd like to talk to her, kind of see what she's looking for in terms of leadership development, because I now need to sell to two different people, and not just the fact that I have a good relationship one direction. So Bill, I just think that's gold.
And many times when it's two different people, they have different sets of criteria. They have different sets of expectations. I do a lot of work with companies that are selling a complex sale, and the value proposition is going to be different depending on the level of person that you're dealing with in an organization. And yet each one of them are a stakeholder in the ultimate decision. So it really is incumbent on us as salespeople to do a much deeper job of understanding everything. And one of the things that we haven't talked about in terms of questions, you got to find out who's the customer's customer. In other words, who is the customer serving? This credit union you were talking about in the LA area, you know, again, who are the customers they're serving? Because again, this is going to give you critical insights, critical information to help you be able to understand why or why not the customer is making a decision.
Yeah, I love what Bryn is saying here, especially this piece of it, Bryn. Before I ask questions that I need answered, my customer has to believe that I can answer the ones they need answered. This is so important and so critical. You know, like I feel like this podcast today is like a sales call. And the reason I feel like that is because this is not the way I thought this podcast was going to go. I did not, based on the topic, what we put in there, I thought this was going to look completely different. And you have to have enough confidence, you have to have enough education, and you have to have enough expertise on a sales call that when the customer takes it a certain direction, you can go there. Because what Bryn said here that is so critical is your customer has to believe that you can answer the ones they need answered, which means if they start asking you certain questions or they give you an answer you didn't expect, you have to be able to go with them.
And you have to be comfortable enough in what you know. And this is why I always say the best sales presentation ever made is the sales presentation ever given, because you know your world so well that wherever the customer goes, you can go with them, and that's key. You know, it comes back to the old piece that, gee, should the salesperson let the customer be in control, or do you need to be in control? And I believe if I'm confident, if I know my stuff and I know my world, I can let you, the customer, drive, at least
Yeah.
initially. Now, I'm going to put guardrails on the road to keep us on the road, but because I want to find out where you're going. Let's get, you know, here's a head turner. I love asking customers questions that they can't answer and I can't answer. Stop and think about that. What does that do? That creates a conversation. That creates a conversation. And we as salespeople can't be seen as a vendor. We can't be seen as a supplier. If we are, we're going to be replaced by the internet if we haven't already. We have to come in and be that true critical person that helps them deal with issues that maybe they weren't even aware they had. So I love asking customers questions that they can't answer and I can't answer, and it creates a conversation.
Yeah, I love what Andy's saying here is when the prospect asks you a question, ask them why they're asking. Really get to that get to that deeper piece.
Yeah.
Natalie talks about the importance of listening and getting to the next question and to be curious first. Thomas, you and I are so on the same page. It is the very first thing that I do with a customer. What questions that I ask depends on the customer's DISC personality. You and me both. I open with a question and I see where they go. And if they are relationship focused, I go with them. If they are to the point, I go with them. I follow that because that says really deeply, I'm listening to them and going and paying attention to. And Mark, kind of to your point, especially initially, I let them drive the conversation because that's how I say this relationship will always be more about you than it will be about me.
And that's why it's so important that you ask questions, they share, and you ask them a follow-up question on that. You take what they say, because it does a couple things. A, it tells them that you're actually paying attention. You actually care. You actually value their opinion. And you know what's interesting is many times you have to get 2-3 levels deep before you really uncover what the real need is that the customer has. So all I really have to do is I walk in with 1 or 2 questions and I ask, and then I just keep building on it, just build on it. And it's amazing the level of conversation. And what are you going to get to? You're going to get to the real issues that the customer has. I love it. We got a great conversation going this morning.
Yeah, we do. And Natalie makes such a great point to adjust your questions for each stakeholder because people's needs are very different, which really leads to a lot with what personally I'm trying to do with questions is I'm trying to get to maybe not what is the biggest need, but what is the most urgent need. And if you don't understand the urgent need, what the customer cares about the most, then if you don't solve that problem, they will never be able to hear you. And that is really, really critical because I see salespeople so often we know that the issue is far bigger. I'm just going to give you a really quick story, and then I know we got to get into the book and everything. But years ago, my husband had a guy come into it. My husband's a dentist, and had a guy come into his office who'd broken his front tooth off, and his daughter was getting married that weekend. He had been a patient of another dentist for a long time. The guy had a really rotten mouth. There were other teeth in his mouth that needed fixed way more than that front tooth. The other dentist addressed the bigger issues, the fact that infection could happen back there, that root canal. That other dentist was right. But what was that guy caring about? He was caring about the fact that he had to get pictures that weekend, and his daughter and his wife were going to kill him if he went down that aisle with half a tooth. And so when you solve the most urgent need, the customer trusts you and listens you, and you earn the right to sell big. And you've got to pay attention to that urgent need.
That is so key, because in today's marketplace, in today's environment, urgency drives the day. Yeah. Salespeople, we get caught up in that big sale. We want that big sale. Fine, big sale. Great. But take care of the urgent need now, and you'll earn the right to come back and do the big sale later on. Hey, time is burning. We got to get to the book. The book,
yeah, we do,
from our great friends Victor Antonio and Jim Cathcart. Relationship selling. Hey, this is
I've got it right here. I thought I had it. I meant to get it out before. This is hot off the press, brand new book. If you know Jim Cathcart, he's a legend in the industry, followed right up by Victor Antonio, who is another legend in the industry. This is based off a book that Jim wrote years and years ago, and these two gentlemen teamed up to update it. It's kind of relationship selling 2.0. It's a fabulous read with really good practical takeaways, and it can't recommend enough.
It is. It's a great book. And like I said, it's kind of a rewrite on a book that Jim first wrote a number of years ago, but it's excellent, because those are two absolutely great people. Hey, you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
Top 10 ways to stay on top of your game in sales.
Number one, educate yourself every day. If you listen to a podcast, join the Sales Logic mastermind, read something, read a book, at least once a month, but sharpen your saw.
2, stay disciplined with your process. Don't deviate from it.
Yeah. Number 3, I would say that analyze at least on a quarterly basis what's working with your sales process and what isn't working with your sales process, and be open to changing things.
Routinely look at who are your best customers. Why are they buying from you? What are they saying? What are the outcomes they're creating? So you're continually staying in the groove.
Yeah. Number 5, I would say that get a mentor, or at least somebody that you study who's better than you in sales, and learn basically what they're doing.
Be aggressive at referring people, and also at the same time being open for referrals coming your way. It is amazing at how we help each other when we help other people. Yeah,
I would say build your network. Really, really important that you're investing in relationships on a daily basis.
Stop doing what you shouldn't be doing, because you may be busy, but you're not productive. It is all about being productive, and there are undoubtedly tasks that have gotten in the way that are keeping you from doing what you should be doing.
Yeah. Number 9, work on your mindset. Work on your mindset, every single day. The people that I see that are the best, focus on building, developing, and enhancing their mindset.
Number 10, know your metrics. What are the metrics that you need to be performing every day, every week? The number of calls you need to be making, conversations, whatever it be. Know your metrics and stay right there. Hey, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, hey, consider telling a friend, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical when you join the Sales Logic Mastermind. Jump out to saleslogicpodcast.com. Take a look at everything the Mastermind has to offer. We'd love to have you joining us. We had a great call last week. Absolutely fantastic call with all the members.
All right. So we will see you right back here next week. Remember, if you have questions, just email Mark, email me, go to the Sales Logic Podcast website, enter them here. We'll feature you right here on the show. Thank you again, always, to our audience. You are amazing. Cannot thank you enough. Have a great week. Hope you hit your sales goals. We'll see you right back here next week.